handcuffed and sitting on a porch of this house there. And they called us in, and of course they said a lot of stuff in Japanese, and no interpreter at that time, and then sent us back out. And then we found out that what they had did is they'd already sentenced us. So then they called us back in again. Then they had an interpreter there, and he interpreted for us, and they had sentenced us to, the three of us, to 6 years solitary confinement in a Japanese military prison. Well, this was in February.
Of what year?
And Japanese military prison of 1945. Japanese prison was located in Singapore. So there was also some other nationalities there. There was a couple of English people and a Dutch person. And so they put me in a jail in Bangkok. And it was a regular Japanese jail. And while there, well, they had this Portuguese doctor was also in a cell there. And every so often they'd go into his cell and they'd really work him over. I don't believe he made it. I don't see how any man could survive the beatings that he received. They made us sit at attention in the cell facing the wall, or you could stand at attention. You could not lay down, you could not talk, you wasn't supposed to turn your head from one side to the other. And they had a little, what we called a honey bucket over in the corner. That was the only toilet facilities you had. And if you had to go, you had to, the guards were walking back and forth in front of your cell, and you'd have to ask him permission to go, give him your Japanese number, and tell him you was Byoki Benjo or something like that, and they'd give you permission to go. So that was the only moving around you got during all that time in there. Well, I spent probably about 2 weeks in there, and then one day, well, they shipped me and a couple of English to Singapore. Took us down, put us on a train to Singapore. Well, in Singapore, on the way to Singapore, of course, we only traveled at night. We didn't travel during the daytime because of the bombing. The Americans were really getting into it then. And a lot of the railroad yards and stuff were really tore up when we go through there. Well, we finally got to Singapore, and they put us in it's called Outram jail. And they put me in a cell there that was about, and I'd curse them at the top of my voice. They never bothered me. Every so often they would take somebody out of a cell, but they were their own people, Japanese prisoners. And they would beat them, and I'd always figure, well, my time's going to come, you know. And that was my only worry. Of course, I was slowly deteriorating. I mean, I was really, and I knew that I wasn't going to last. I mean, I just had a feeling I wouldn't make it. And then in August, they come around one day and opened the cell door and told me to come out, and I went out, and they took me out to the courtyard. And in this time I was in there, I never had a bath. So I had dirty skin that I could peel off. I mean, I was filthy, and I was so filthy, I mean, you actually become ashamed of yourself, you know. And so in this courtyard, they had a well there that was on ropes, you know, where you could dip down and get buckets of water. So that was the first bath I got. And I savored it. I mean, it was really good.
How long of a period did you have a bath? Did you have a chance to clean yourself?
The only thing I had in there for a bathroom was a bucket. And every morning a prisoner, they'd open the door and the prisoner would take that bucket out and put another bucket in there. But normally there wasn't much in the bucket because I didn't have that much to eat or drink. I mean, I would say that if I was lucky, I would say maybe 8 ounces of any kind of liquid in a day, for the whole day. And as far as food, it couldn't have been much more over 8 ounces. 8 ounces is not very much. I know that. It's very small, of course. Once in a while, mostly rice again. Once in a while there would be a few kernels of corn in the rice. I would put it off to the side and kind of have it for dessert. And and once in a great while there'd be maybe a few greens or something in there. But like I say, then they let me out, and then they opened up the main gates and told me to go. And there were some other people, I forget, Australian or a Dutchman. And so we left and went down the hill, and finally some Chinaman spoke English, told us about them dropping the bomb and that the war was over, see. And of course...
They didn't give you any specific instructions to go to a certain place. They just opened the gate and told you to go.
Yeah, just said, "Scoosh, go, go." So we figured they were going to shoot us. Like, you know, the old saying, you know, run, they'll shoot you for escaping, see. And, of course, all of us were so weak and everything, we couldn't have did anything anyway. So we made our way out to, this Chinaman showed us how to get to Changi, which was a Changi jail out there. And so we made our way out there. And you started to believe a little bit then that something had happened, you know, because the guard on the gate didn't have a regular rifle, he had a wooden rifle. And then we got in there, and of course here was a bunch of Americans there at Changi jail, you know. And then that evening, C-47 flew over and dropped, I'll never forget it, dropped cigarettes and chewing gum, and even half packages of chewing gum and half packages of cigarettes. They must have took it out of their pockets. And I sat up all night long chewing gum and smoking cigarettes until even my tongue got sore. And of course talking, you know, and dreaming about food. I used to dream about food, pork and beans. I love them today. I mean, but I dream about them to where you could actually taste it. I didn't dream about ice cream and stuff like that, just plain old food. And,
so what happened after, how did you eventually get brought home?
Well, then they flew in, a major come out there on a truck and wanted to know if there was any Americans there. And of course, there were several of us there, and he says, "Well, you're going out," he says, "we're taking you out." So they hauled us out to the airport there and loaded us aboard the C-47 and flew me to Calcutta, India. So I think this was the first part of September, because but my official liberation date was the 6th of September, because that's when the English retook Singapore, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, I went to Calcutta, India, and then I spent a few days there in a hospital there, 142nd hospital, and then flew from there back to the States. And
where did you fly into?
Pardon?
Where did you fly into?
Well, we flew into New York first, and then they didn't let us leave the aircraft. They said they just got a message to fly us on to Washington, D.C. So we flew into Washington, D.C., and as soon as the aircraft parked, well, they had this whole line of staff cars lined up. And they put us in the staff cars and stopped this big building and said, when you go in the door, tell them your name. And so I went through the door and told them my name, and they said, go to booth number so-and-so. And they had all these telephone booths lined up there. And so I picked up the phone, and my family was on it.
Let me ask you, when you actually made it in, either to New York, Washington, and you knew you were back home, can you recall, can you describe your feelings and your thoughts when you set foot on U.S. soil?
Did what?
Can you describe your feelings and thoughts when you knew you were back home?
Oh, very emotional. Very emotional. It's hard to describe. I mean, it's almost unbelievable the feeling you have, you know, of finally making it back and being one of them that did make it back. So many of them didn't, and we lost many of them.
How did you eventually get home?
I eventually, I took a train from Washington to Chicago, and I was traveling with a friend by the name of Ewing, and he had an uncle and aunt that lived in Chicago. And for some reason, I wasn't in a hurry to get home. I don't know why. Just something about it. I just wasn't in any big hurry. And so I stopped in Chicago, and my sister had become married while I was gone, so I bought a wedding present for her. And my folks had had their 25th wedding anniversary while I was gone, so I bought a silver wedding anniversary present for them while I was there. And we had a couple of parties there. And then I finally went on home, and like I said, my father worked on a railroad, and I come from a small town. It's only about 6,000 population. And I talked to him at the phone, and I told him I didn't want anybody to meet me at the train except him, because I didn't want any big deal or a bunch of people crying, or my mother and them. And anyway, when we pulled, shortly before we got into Iowa Falls, there's a place called Sunnybrook Farms, and the train slowed way down there. And looked up, and my father was walking on the aisle, and we got into the depot, and my mother and my sister and my new brother-in-law, they were all there, but they didn't cause any fuss or anything like that. And so at that time, I still had to, I don't know, you're more or less ashamed, you know, of being a POW. The fear of people thinking, you know, that you'd give up. And it wasn't that case. I mean, you hadn't give up because you didn't have any choice.
Let me ask you, while you bring that up, we know that the government has a definition for a prisoner of war. So with your experience, how would you define a prisoner of war? You know, what kind of definition gives that term prisoner of war?
How do I define being a prisoner of war? Well, the biggest thing is everything has been taken away from you. Your liberty, your dignity, everything. The only thing you have left is yourself, your religion, and your comradeship with your fellow man that you were in there with. But you have a very, you're beaten. You feel beaten, but yet you don't give up hope. You still have that hope or you still know that if one person is going to get back, you're going to be that one person. That is one of the things I think that pulled most of us through. That, and I believe you really, in a sense, it's kind of like self-hypnosis. You're telling yourself all these things. I'm going to be out of here in 1 year. When I first went in there, I was going to get out in 3 months. I mean, it was going to be all over. Well, 3 months didn't work that way. So you just extended a little bit. And, you know, the whole deal is faith. Faith in yourself. Faith in the Lord. Faith in your fellow man. And I'm one of them. I haven't been able to. I know they tell you to forgive, but I can't do it. I can't. I'll never forgive them. They took away too much.
Forsman, that's all I have. Given me a wonderful information, wonderful interview. As you know, this will be preserved forever.
Yeah.
Legacy of you and your stories for the American public to always know and not forget.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Upon retiring from the military, Melfred was awarded 27 medals, which included 3 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart. Upon receiving his Purple Heart, Melfred said, "I gratefully accept this award on behalf of my over 700 shipmates still standing watch in the Sundan Straits." Melfred Forsman's name is on the Owl Falls Veterans Memorial. Melfred Forsman, one true and great American hero.